In February 2024, Uber announced its 2023 financial results. The company had brought in more than $37.2 billion in revenue and reported a net profit of over $1.8 billion. This marked the first time that Uber was profitable in its 15-year history. As we can see, since being founded in 2009, the company has cumulatively lost around $30 billion. For years, Uber was seen as the epitome of the Silicon Valley startup that perpetually operated at a loss, existing more for its disruptive potential than its financial viability. In fact, many analysts even claim that Uber's business model is so fundamentally flawed that the company will never turn a profit. Now the company has proved that it can actually become a profitable, cash-generating business. But how exactly did Uber find its way to profitability, and is this financial performance sustainable? Let's take a deeper dive into Uber's operations. To understand how Uber finally became profitable, we must first understand why the company kept losing money. Regulatory challenges and investments in future technologies are some of the reasons behind Uber's money-losing financial performance. But the main reason why the company kept losing money is because that was its strategy. Uber has followed a loss leader growth strategy, similar to that of other tech companies like Amazon. Basically, the idea behind this strategy is to operate at a loss to rapidly acquire customers and gain market share. This approach, often fueled by substantial venture capital investments, prioritizes growth over profitability in the short to medium term. The underlying philosophy of operating at a loss for customer acquisition is based on the belief that initial losses will be offset by long-term dominance and profitability. For Uber, this meant entering new markets quickly, scaling up operations and undercutting traditional taxi services with lower prices. Once the company captures a significant market share and becomes a major player in the industry, this strategy calls for profitability by decreasing costs through lowering the amount of subsidiaries and increasing revenue by jacking up prices. And this is exactly what Uber has done. By offering rides at lower prices than the cost of providing them, Uber positioned itself as an attractive alternative to traditional taxis and public transportation. These subsidies were instrumental in habituating customers to the convenience of app-based ride-hailing services, thereby expanding the overall market. Similarly, to ensure a sufficient supply of drivers to meet rising demand, Uber provided various incentives to drivers, including bonuses for signing up, guaranteed earnings, and earnings boosts during peak times. These incentives, while effective for recruiting and retaining drivers, further increased operational costs. The strategy was predicated on building a large network of drivers that would enhance service reliability and decrease wait times, thereby improving customer satisfaction and retention. The profit formula is simple. A company gets profits when its revenue exceeds its expenses. Therefore, Uber had two choices to become profitable: increase revenue or decrease costs. The company has done both simultaneously. Uber's revenue has grown every year since it started publishing its financial information. This is not surprising considering that, as we explained, the company's strategy was to prioritize growth over everything else. However, this revenue growth does not explain the company's profitability. After all, Uber has seen growing revenue since its founding, but it just became profitable now. If you are an Uber user, you might have noticed that fares have become much more expensive than they were a few years ago, and you are not wrong. In 2018, the company said it completed over 5.2 billion trips, and this number has grown to 9.4 billion in 2023. On the other hand, total gross bookings for its ride service, which refers to the total amount paid by Uber riders, has grown from $41.3 billion in 2018 to $68.9 billion in 2023. When we focus on the post-pandemic data, we notice an interesting thing. The growth of the total gross bookings has significantly outperformed the growth of total trips over the past 3 years. One possible reason behind this might be the fact that the average trip length has gone up. However, this is not the case. Instead, this data suggests that the average trip price has increased. Uber itself has also confirmed that ride prices have been growing, but the company's CEO blamed inflation for the increased rates, justifying the new prices by saying that everything is more expensive. However, an analysis of the company's historical prices show that Uber's price hikes have significantly outpaced inflation. But growing revenue is just one part of Uber's profitability. The other, and perhaps more important factor, is a focus on minimizing expenses. From the amount received from the customer, Uber must pay taxes and tolls, the driver, and other costs. While many of the costs to the left of the gross profit increase or decrease depending on bookings and don't change as the number of rides increase, the cost to the right, if managed appropriately, should not increase with volume or bookings and thus should decrease per ride. And indeed, in 2022, the company launched a systemic strategy designed to rein in costs at the ride-hailing company. And not long after, the firm turned its first profitable quarter. This is simple economies of scale. The firm amortizes its fixed costs, such as R&D and G&A, over more rides, so as volume increases, it starts making money. But perhaps an even more important way the company has decreased its costs is by lowering the amount it pays its drivers. Globally, Uber reported a 30% increase in drivers on their platform in 2023 and a 13% increase in online hours per driver. That's a 43% increase in supply, far outstripping its growth in trip demand. This driver oversupply has allowed Uber to cut driver pay per trip and provide fewer trips per driver, and data analysis backs this information. Uber is a marketplace. It offers a service and charges a fee for that service. Uber makes money by taking a cut, which is referred to as the take rate. When looking at NYC data, it is evident that Uber's take rate has increased since 2019, and a Forbes article that analyzes data across various Uber markets claims that the company started increasing its take rate in 2022. According to that article, Uber now has a 40% take rate. This means that the company takes 40% of the money paid by its customers. The article points out that the main change facilitating this increase is the 2022 implementation of upfront pay. Uber's upfront fares plus destination (UFD) policy, which rolled out in the US, changes how drivers are paid by using an AI algorithm to set fixed earnings per trip, moving away from traditional time and distance calculations. This system offers drivers pre-trip details like destination, estimated time, distance, and final pay. Despite the benefits, drivers face challenges with the algorithm-based system. They are often forced to make quick decisions regarding trip offers under the threat of being sidelined or placed in a penalty box for declining too many rides. Furthermore, a bidding mechanism called Trip Radar forces drivers to compete for trips, often leading to accepting lower-paid rides, which intensifies competition and potentially leads to reduced earnings for everyone. While Uber does not deny that its take rate has been increasing, it claims it is nowhere near the 40% claimed by the Forbes article. The revelation that Uber can significantly maximize profits from its drivers highlights a critical aspect of the gig economy. It underscores Uber's ability to achieve what regulators have long feared, treating drivers as de facto employees without offering them the corresponding benefits. This situation points to a highly unstable and precarious work environment. While Uber appears profitable, the stability of its profits is questionable, particularly as regulatory scrutiny could compel the company to formally employ many, if not most, of its drivers. Despite its current financial success, Uber aims to maintain a low profile, as its margins are narrow and more vulnerable to regulatory changes than to market competition.